let's go to college football here. Michigan just absolutely annihilated NIU, and that was expected.
Yeah.
Pretty much let the entire roster play that game. Snap count wise, almost everybody got at least one in that one. They have to take on Rutgers, who is also 3-0, and Rutgers has showed a very strong, disciplined defense as well. They played Delaware, and they played Syracuse, and they played Temple, which those teams aren't really jumping out at you, but they won handedly. They won just as handedly as Michigan did last week in that Temple game, 61-14. Delaware they beat 45-13.
Yep.
So Michigan right now on ESPN matchup predictor is 87.5% likely to win, which I feel like is actually higher than I'd probably put it. I would say 72 for Michigan probably, but that's just because Rutgers is one of those teams that they can be hard to put away. They're at least going to give a fight. Shiano's got Rutgers playing pretty well. Vedrill's been good. Pacheco's been good. Bo Melton's been a solid wide receiver for him.
Rutgers just had two of their corners just get suspended today, though, so that's good.
Oh, I did not see that.
Yeah, some sort of paintball incident. They both were arrested.
Was it like hazing paintball incident? Why else is
I don't really know. Here, I'll find it while we talk about this, but apparently they both got arrested, so that's good.
So it is interesting to look at, though, because points per game, each team has allowed exactly 11.3 points per game. Michigan and Rutgers, identical in points allowed so far this season in 3 games. There's 6 points different, 47 in points per game for Michigan, 41 per game for Rutgers. So they're even, at least in those regards. I think Michigan's just had a harder schedule.
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, from a pure talent standpoint, Michigan's still far and away better than Rutgers here. Rutgers is just better coached than they used to be, so I think it keeps them in a lot of games. And they're confident, right? I mean, before I don't think they were confident in anything that was going on before Shiano came back. Real quick on those two guys. They were arrested by campus police after shooting 3 students with a paintball gun in a drive-by on Monday night. So they're just driving through campus, popping people with paintball guns.
And they felt like that was a good idea, I guess. Yeah, sure.
Like a great idea. All right, well, that'll get you suspended. Anyway.
So what do you expect to see from Michigan in this game?
I think they're still going to push Rutgers' defensive line around. I think the offensive line is the strength of Michigan's team, clearly, and they want it to be a strength, clearly. So they're going to be able to push them around. It's obviously not going to come as easy as it did last week. But I mean, I think something similar to like the Washington result would be a real good result. And hopefully with some, a little more mixed in passing. Obviously, Kid McInerney looked good. I mean, he wasn't asked to do a whole lot last week, but he looked good. He throws a very good deep ball. And I feel like depending on what Rutgers does. So the last 2 weeks, these teams have just refused to force Michigan to throw the ball. Like they haven't brought extra safeties down into the box, at least until later in the game when the game was already over. They just have refused to do that. And I think Rutgers might actually just devote 9 in the box and just say, hey, let's see if they can beat us over the top. Now, the thing that scares teams like that is Michigan has shown 2 out of the 3 weeks they've thrown deep balls and thrown them pretty well. So, I feel like Michigan probably hits a deep one this game because I think Rutgers is going to not going to sit there and just get paved like the last 2 or 3 teams that Michigan has played. And I don't know. I think Michigan is the better team, and I think I overall expect a mostly dominating performance. There might be some moments. I'm interested in more. I think Michigan's offense is going to be able to score points on Rutgers. I'm more interested to see how the defense does against Rutgers because Rutgers does have some playmakers. The quarterback's experienced. I mean, I don't think he's a world beater by any means, but 2 good running backs. Pacheco is really good. Aaron Cruikshank is a good returner.
Bo Melton's a good receiver.
Quick, fast. So those are guys that they're going to have to deal with. And unlike NIU, you really didn't have – I mean, they had a pretty good running back coming into the game, but there's nobody there that you sat there and be like, that guy can really mess the game up for us. So I think it's going to be a mostly dominating performance, but I'm more interested to see the defensive side of the ball because and how they match up and how the game plan looks on that side.
The defense has impressed impressed me a lot more than I expected. I did not expect their corners to hold a candle this year, but the corners have stepped in. Jamon Green's been nice. Vincent Gray's been good. I like the safeties with RJ Moten, and Dax Hill can play back there, and Brad Hawkins. I actually, the secondary I'm growing quite fond of.
Yes.
And
the
especially if they
linebackers
can,
are getting better. The backers are getting better.
Jalen Harrell's starting to get more playing time too as games are going on. So that's
I'll be
encouraging.
interested. This is another game where it's like, okay, now this is last week. Aiden Hutchinson actually didn't even play that much because after the first.
I think he had 18 snaps. He might have not even touched 20
after the first
snaps.
quarter, and I know he played some in the second, and after that, it's like, all right, no reason. This is a game where it's like, all right, let's he can go wreck the game now. Like, time for him to go. Like, he wrecked the game against Washington. For him to go dominate, and that's what I'm looking to see. That, and I think Dax Hill could have a huge game. Rutgers likes to kind of spread it out a little bit, so he'll be in the nickel. I think he could have a massive game. He's been really, really, really good this year. So I think Rutgers will definitely have like maybe a drive or two where it really looks like they know what they're doing. Maybe a scripted drive at the beginning of each half or whatever. But I think Michigan's defense, they've been really good at adjusting to what teams are throwing at them as the games go on. And I really do think that it doesn't really matter if Michigan's offensive line completely controls games like they have the first 3 weeks. It doesn't really matter what the rest of the team does, because that just demoralizes a team if they know, hey, we're literally going to give up 7 yards a carry. We're going to lose. Like, there's no way to win football games if you're giving up 7 yards a carry. So
yeah, Rutgers will have to stop them early and often. What's a prediction score that you have for this game?
38-14.
Oh, you almost said the exact same as me. I have 38 as Michigan's score, but I think Rutgers will score 21.
21? Okay. I thought about that, but I could see it. But yeah, I'll do 38-14. I feel pretty good on
I think Rutgers may even have as much of a competent offense as maybe Washington did. But Washington only put up 10. But I think I don't know.
I think Rutgers does have a better offense, but I think Michigan, I just think this team's got a different vibe around them this year. It's a real year. So, I think we talked about it a little bit too, but, do you look at it as do you look at last year as, a fluke and, a weird COVID year, and it doesn't really count because everything was all messed up. You couldn't even really practice the same way. You couldn't, everything got all screwed up. Or do you take a lot of what happened last year and take it into account? And I think the way I've looked at it is you got to take some of that into account. But there were certain things, you're seeing it around college football. Like, you're seeing teams, Michigan State, we'll probably talk about them in a little bit here. Like, they look a lot better. Like, it's like a complete 180, right? Michigan looks a lot better. Minnesota looks a lot better. And then some of these other teams that, maybe looked really good last year, maybe they don't look as
like
good.
Indiana.
Perfect. Or kind of what they have always been now. You know what I mean? So I don't know if that's really I don't know what to really think of that. That's hard to quantify what last year even meant. But I think this team just has a better vibe, a better attitude about the way they go about their business. And I think part of it's due to the new coaching hires and things like that, and some of the new players they've got playing now. I think their quarterback's a legitimate leader this year, unlike Joe Milton. Not going to
shots fired.
He's already lost his job at Tennessee, so
it's his arm and nothing else for sure.
Yeah,
I do want to get your thoughts on Michigan State, then, obviously, to appease the common folk. Sure. But yeah, Michigan State, obviously, you mentioned playing very well, also 3-0. Looks like a competitive Big Ten school this year. What do you continue to expect after what you've seen so far?
Walker is an extremely good running back. Okay, so that changes what they can do on offense, because last year their running back, I think it was Holmes, he just wasn't going to go make them plays. Right. Well, Walker will make something out of nothing so they can continue to churn out yards. So that makes a big difference. He's leading the nation in rushing, so you can't really argue with that.
And Elijah Collins is a good complimentary.
Collins is a good compliment behind him, so that's fine.
I think it gives Peyton Thorne a little bit more Like
Right.
he doesn't have to
don't
rely
have to
on
put it
him
on-
like
you
they've
don't have to
relied on
put it on
Rocky
the
Lombardi
quarterback.
all these years.
Right, you don't have to put it on the quarterback. The offensive line is, while improved, at least looks improved right now, is not great still. Because if you rewatch games, Walker is making a lot out of nothing sometimes, which is good. That's why they brought a guy like that in. Like they know their offensive line is not amazing. They know they're gonna have a back that's gonna be able to make guys miss, break tackles, that sort of thing. Thorne's been probably better than I thought he would be. I mean, he threw 4 touchdowns last week against Miami. Miami's a mess. We don't need to talk about Miami, but they're a mess. But I would say they're a lot better than I thought they'd be. I wouldn't, it's the same thing. These two, Michigan and Michigan State, are almost kind of in the same boat here. You want to see them play somebody real, right? But at the same time, for both teams, it's like, look, our schedule is our schedule. Like you got to play who's in front of you. So if you're looking at the positives from Michigan's standpoint, right? If you look at from a Michigan standpoint, you've literally eviscerated all 3 teams you've played. So does that mean you're really good? Does that mean they're really bad? Or is it a little bit of both? There's probably some aspects of both, right? You're obviously better, but you've taken care of business. While the team, I mean, there's been Harbaugh teams in the past 3 years that haven't necessarily taken care of business against teams they should, right? It hasn't been since the first 2 years of Harbaugh, I'd say, and then some until 2018. So some in that 4th year where they've just, I mean, when they are clearly the better team, they've shown it, right? I mean, that 2016 season, they blew everybody out until they lost to Iowa. Blew everybody out until they lost to Iowa and then eventually, lost a close game to Ohio State. Like every game was a blowout. It wasn't even close. So they're getting back to that attitude. And then you look at it from a Michigan State standpoint. Okay, they probably had a little bit tougher schedule than Michigan. I mean, they already played a Big Ten game, although Northwestern seems horrible, like horrible.
They played Youngstown State.
Youngstown State, who's terrible. So that's like Michigan's NIU,
Miami,
right? But then they played Miami, and they had to go to
like Washington.
So that's similar to a Washington game. Other than they played it on the road, they had to go all the way to Florida to play that game. While Miami has no home field advantage, it's because they play at a stadium 45 minutes from their campus, which is the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life. But
I did not know, really?
Yeah, they don't even have one out there on their campus. Stupidest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. There's no game day atmosphere. It's like, what's the point? Like,
oh man,
it's stupid. But that's a different thing.
Their secondary's played really well.
They've taken care of business and they've finished all their games. I mean, that they dominated the 4th quarter. That was a game until the 4th quarter, and they dominated. So if you're looking at it from both teams, both teams, they're kind of in the same boat here. And you can't really argue or you can't really complain if you're a fan or a follower of either of these teams about what these teams have done. Because the thing that angers me is the whole you haven't played anybody yet thing. It's like, all right, well, first of all, they will. So if they are frauds, they'll figure that out, right? So it's not like they're going to be a team where they're dodging everybody all the time, right? They're not that kind of team. Like they play in the Big Ten. They're going to play good teams down the road. Second of all, they get to play each other. So, the argument about who's better right now just is dumb. If only they could there's no better way to settle it than watch them play each other. And third of all, they've taken care of business and then some. It's not like either team's been squeaking out a close game against, like, why aren't people talking about Notre Dame barely beating Toledo? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Why aren't we talking, Ohio State in a game with Tulsa late in the 4th quarter? You know what I mean? Like, why aren't we talking about those things? Instead, we're sitting here, and I know it's because of where we live, but like, people are sitting there arguing about like, oh, they haven't played anybody, or oh, Michigan needs to do this better. Oh, Michigan State isn't this yet. They've taken care of business. Both teams are right there taking care of business, and they're, I would say, by all accounts, better, at least at this point, than
anybody
thought they'd be.
Their defense has just stood out. Xavier Henderson's been a great safety. Angelo Gross has been a good safety. They got the linebacker help from Cal Halliday. I didn't expect to be as good as he was this year.
Yeah, he's been really good.
And then you have Corvaris Couch, who people already thought he was pretty good. Their interior defensive line has actually not been getting that much push, but between Drew Beasley and Pietrowski, pretty good edge rush work. but Kyan Gervin's been a good corner. They've got pieces on defense. But I actually think Michigan's defense is, again, like you said, they have to battle it out themselves to really determine. But I feel like Michigan's defense has been more lockdown level wise.
Yeah, and if you look at that game, I mean, we'll talk about it when it gets closer, but like, it's still going to come down to up front. It always does in that game, and like I said before, Michigan's offensive line continues to dominate teams, and I really think like Michigan is playing a sustainable brand of football right now. So they're playing. I mean, obviously, like eventually they're probably going to need to throw the ball more than 14 times in a game, but they're playing a sustainable brand of football if they can, even if they're not turning out just ripping off 50-yard gains all the time on the ground. If they can turn out 7-yard gains, 6-yard, they're playing a brand of football that's one, it's not going to put the ball in jeopardy, so you're not going to lose games based off turnovers. Two, you're going to possess the ball and control the ball and control the way the game's being played. And three, you're playing a brand of football that is just demoralizing to opponents. I mean, to get paved the way they've just destroyed teams, I mean, that's just physically, I mean, that's hard to watch if you're a fan of the other team.
I think they're fourth in all of FBS in rushing yards per game.
They might even be first now.
Maybe some games have updated in that. Last I checked, they were fourth, but that was also 3 days ago.
Yeah, let's see.
I mean, just the fact that like even Army and Georgia Tech, who are just literally run every play type of teams.
Yep. So rushing yards.
They're somewhere at like the 350 mark, I think.
Blake Corum, for individual, Blake Corum is third in the nation in rushing, while Kenneth Walker, the third, is first.
Sheesh.
Kenneth Walker has 9 more carries, but he's got about 80 more yards. Blake Corum leads the nation in total touchdowns, though. So if you go,
they've both been fun to watch.
Yeah, I'm just gonna find this now. Team statistics, rushing offense. They are fourth.
Fourth.
Well, if we go yards per game, it might be first. No,
I have Michigan first in rushing yards per game, 350.3.
Huh. I have
right above Florida, Army, Air Force, and Baylor. Which Baylor at that point running, they've always been a pass.
Yep, you're right. They are first.
Yep,
which is crazy. Now they, again, there was a stat that popped up like they've thrown the ball. The only teams that have thrown the ball less are pretty much the service academies or whatever. But I think they showed me enough last week to show me that like, okay, there are guys out there that they can throw the ball to. First of all, McNamara looked confident and comfortable. They clearly put an emphasis on attempting to throw the ball a little bit more. So I think I don't know. Again, this is going to be a stiffer test. I think this is going to be their toughest game to this point.
Mm-hmm.
And then the week after that, it's Wisconsin. So that's even tougher again. So the schedule is ramping up now, right? But going back to the prediction, I still think they're head and shoulders above Rutgers, I would think. I mean, I don't know. I know you think they're going to win, but I think they're just a better team. They have a better roster, and they're at home. If it was at Rutgers, I maybe would give Rutgers a little bit more of a chance.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, what are you going to look at? So we mentioned how their offensive line is the strength of this team. It'll be interesting to see now in our top 50 Michigan football players of 2021, how many of them land anywhere even in the top 25, because I think they even have depth at the offensive line position. So
yeah, they've got a lot. I mean, I would say they go from guys that could actually legitimately, I wouldn't feel that bad about playing in a game. Like if somebody went down or got hurt.
Like Trente Jones, Zach Zinter.
They could go 9 or 10
Carson deep. Barnhart.
Yeah, legitimately 9 or 10 deep, I would feel decent about. Like obviously,
Crippen's been a good center.
Crippen's been great when he's come in. Yeah, I mean, there's